rather than consumers. Good morning. In today's sociology seminar, we are going to look at an institution that we often take for granted, but which has fundamentally shaped modern society: the public library. To understand its impact, we have to look at how different early collections were. If you look at the grand archives of ancient Mesopotamia or Rome, you might assume their massive stone walls were designed to protect the fragile scrolls from devastating fires or seasonal flooding. In truth, environmental damage was a secondary concern. Because books were painstakingly copied by hand, they were worth a fortune. So these heavy vaults were built almost exclusively to guard against theft. Furthermore, you couldn't just walk in and browse. You might think these early archives were reserved for royalty or wealthy merchants. While kings certainly funded them, the day-to-day access was actually strictly limited to the clergy, specifically the priests, who used the texts to maintain their theological influence. The concept of a library open to the everyday citizen didn't truly gain momentum until the mid-19th century. This wasn't driven by a sudden sense of charity. It was largely an economic necessity. The Industrial Revolution was booming, and factory owners realized that blind obedience and physical strength were no longer enough. To operate complex new machinery and manage inventory, the economy desperately required a labor force equipped with basic literacy. However, this movement faced intense opposition from the upper classes. Several prominent politicians actively campaigned against opening free reading rooms. They weren't necessarily worried that the working class would become lazy and avoid the factories. Their primary fear was that giving the masses access to philosophy and history would encourage them to question authority, ultimately leading to a full-scale political rebellion. Despite this pushback, the movement succeeded, largely thanks to the American industrialist Andrew Carnegie. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, he donated millions to build over 2,000 libraries globally. But there was a catch. He didn't just hand over the keys. While he paid for the bricks and the initial collection of books, he forced the local municipal councils to sign a contract guaranteeing they would permanently fund the daily maintenance using local tax dollars. Carnegie also had strict ideas about architecture. He didn't care about installing massive domes or ornate statues. Instead, his absolute signature requirement was that every building must force the visitor to walk up a grand staircase before entering the front doors. This physical climb was intended to be a metaphor for elevating oneself through education. Now, let's look at the 21st century. With the rise of ebooks and the internet, critics constantly claim the library is dying. It's true that the physical borrowing of paperback novels has declined. However, foot traffic is actually at record highs. People aren't necessarily coming for the free Wi-Fi or to read the daily newspapers. With the explosion of the gig economy, the biggest draw is the desperate need for a silent, dedicated workspace for remote employees who cannot concentrate at home. The role of the staff has also radically shifted. Modern librarians do far more than recommend literature or organize archives. In major cities, they essentially function as frontline social workers. A significant portion of their day is now spent helping elderly or homeless patrons navigate complex digital forms to secure their state welfare, ensuring vulnerable people are financial lifelines. To remain relevant, many progressive libraries are entirely rethinking what they allow people to borrow. We're seeing the rise of the library of things. Instead of just loaning out laptops or digital cameras, these branches are stocking heavy hardware. A local resident can now use their library card to check out expensive household tools, like an electric drill or a circular saw, saving them from buying something they might only use once. Ultimately, urban sociologists argue that the modern library's greatest value isn't its book collection at all. Think about your local city center. Almost every indoor environment, whether it's a cafe, a mall, or a train station, expects you to spend money. The public library stands alone as the